Welcome back, everyone, to the Abundance Formula podcast. This has been one heck of a week for our family. So, we're just trying to keep it together and scrounge to just really survive this week. Kellen had to have an emergency tooth extraction on Friday. The crown he had on one of his molars went bad or something. And so they needed to get it out ASAP because he had started feeling really sick and all these things. So it was getting infected and they needed it out ASAP. So they did that and put in a bone graft. Well, they did tell him he might be spitting out bones for a few days and a few other things that were considered within normal limits for symptoms. But like he has been really spitting out a lot of bones and it was really getting quite gnarly. And so he showed me some pictures yesterday and I was like, that doesn't look good. That looks disgusting. Like it did not look like the graft was in there still properly. And so yeah, he was really hurting and in a lot of pain and not feeling well again. And so he sent the pictures to the doctor really late last night. He felt bad, but I was like, dude, send it because I don't I don't know anything about teeth, but that sucker right there looks not good. So sure enough, they're like, yeah, you need to emergency come in at 1 o'clock today because it looks like the bone graft has come out and they needed to fix it. So he went in today for that to get it put back in. And sure enough, it had come out. And so they had to re-sew back in. The power went out during it. Galen was cracking me up with this story, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'll have to come on sometime and share it because he like ended up pulling out. He was awake through the whole thing also, which actually turned out to be a good thing because I don't know if there was a car accident or something, but all of downtown's Chattanooga's like lights went out and power was out. And so he ended up having to like hold his cell phone flashlight because the guy wasn't done doing his stitches yet. So that was one whole story. And then, man, like Sunday, Malia dropped all of a sudden with a super high fever of 103.7, super high. I took her to the doctor. They thought she had strep. She had multiple signs of potentially having strep. So they gave us some antibiotics for that, which we got on those. And the next day she felt so much better, which was great. But then this morning, randomly, after I finished training one of my clients, she just started throwing up for the next hour. And luckily, when we went to the doctor, they also had given us some medication in case she felt nauseous because she had complained of a stomach ache, which they said apparently it can also go with strep in little kids, which I did not know. Anyway, so she started throwing up. I gave her some Zofran, stopped the throwing up. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, does she have a stomach virus now? Yeah, like it's really hard. Any parents out there that has, especially more than one kid, like knows. So now I'm trying to keep Sailor away from Malia. And like, as soon as one kid's sick, all they want to do is be around their sibling all of a sudden. Like, it's ridiculous. So keeping them separated or trying to taking care of them, like it's just been a whirlwind. However, we did get a phone call, or I got a phone call this morning though, and the doctor said, because she tested negative in the doctor's office for strep, but they sent it off for culture because they're like, we really think this is what she has. Well, the culture came back, she did not have strep. So it must have just been a virus. But they told me to stop giving her the amoxicillin because if they don't have strep and they keep taking this medication, it can make their stomach sick. So I really do think that's actually why she was throwing up this morning, because I didn't give her next round of amoxicillin this morning because they told me not to. And that totally makes sense. And she's like a really skimpy eater anyway. So putting all that medicine on, like not a very full stomach. Anyways, so it makes a lot of sense. That actually made me feel a lot better. So I really don't think she has a stomach virus. But regardless, I have been running around like chicken with my head cut off and finally sitting down here to do this episode. So just all of that to say she also may come down here and interrupt us potentially. We'll see. Sailor's asleep on the couch. I didn't even get her up to her room in time before she fell asleep on the couch out here. Malia's supposed to be in her room watching TV and just kind of taking it easy. But we'll see. So just kind of FYI there that this episode may be a little squirrely and that Malia may join us in a moment. Who knows? Or Sailor may join us in a minute. So anyways, today's topic though, I want to keep it pretty simple, but it's something that I think will be really helpful breaking it down in this fashion. So I want to talk about 4 pillars of healthy living. These are 4 pillars that I think are really strong cornerstones to abundant living. And I want to talk about them in a frame of mind to think of it, because a lot of you on here that follow initially started following me because of fitness and health and that kind of stuff. And so I want to actually present it to you in a kind of health and fitness fashion, thinking of these are 4 pillars of healthy living and how we can both nourish each of these pillars and exercise them. It'll really make it simple for you guys and not overwhelming to start trying to remember that these are part of your life and approach them with intentional fashion. And I think it will just really help ultimately up level the way that you live when you think about them this way. So the 4 pillars are mind, body, spirit, purpose, which may not sound new to anybody. They may be phrased a little differently than you've potentially heard them before. Most people just do 3 things. They say, mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul. But I feel like there's mind, body, spirit, and purpose. So I'm going to break them down and kind of talk about each, right? So first, we'll talk about obviously mindset. If you've been around here any length of time, this is a self-help, personal development podcast. So we talk so much about mindset. But again, these are 4 areas you really want to start both nourishing and exercising, working them out, keeping them strong to have the most well-rounded, healthy life, abundant living as you can. So when you think about your mind and you're like, okay, let's think about the health of my mind right now. What are the things you've been putting into it? What are the things that you watch? What are the things that you listen to? Are you reading anything? What kind of things are you reading? So just sort of being intentional about thinking about, okay, what am I doing each day or each week? None of these are going to be perfectly well-rounded. So you don't necessarily have to do each of these every single day, but definitely each week it would be smart to try to make sure that you have addressed the health of each of these each week. That would be smart. That is what I would recommend. So for your mind, where's your mind health? In your week, what are you doing each week to address the health of your mind in a way to nourish it and a way to exercise it? So what are you putting into it? What are the things that you're watching? What are the things you're listening to? And what are the quality of these things? Even if you are just watching reality shows or watching movies, whatever those may be, that's all fine. Because a lot of those things, are entertainment, are your kind of escape from the day-to-day seriousness, right? But it is important to make sure, like, is all the things I'm watching like scary movies and like kind of or a little negative or all drama or what? It is important to make sure you're inputting things that are positive or things that are energizing or things that are educational or things that do challenge your mind. So it is important to make sure that you do sprinkle that in there in some way. And so that's the kind of things input that I would say is more like the food, the nourishment for your mind. What are you watching? What are you listening to? And are you reading anything? And if you're not reading, I really do challenge you to do that because it is something by science that is proven to be a workout for your brain. Even if you're just reading a fiction book that is entertainment, not educational, that is your brain's workout. You do need to work your brain to keep it strong, to keep it healthy, to keep it adept. It is something we have to do. As much as we want to just zone out in life, it's just you really can't do that long term, or else the results will show. It will. So thinking about that as far as nourishment goes, the quality of the nourishment, the food you're giving to your mind, your brain. But then how are you exercising it? So the workout for the brain, are you challenging it? This is big again. So are you doing things even in your day-to-day that challenge your mind? Are you ever trying some new things? It's easy to just get used to the things we are currently doing and not do new things. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be jumping off and skydiving or anything like that. It can truly just be, taking a new art class you've not tried or doing something different you've not done or giving it some kind of exposure. Maybe you typically read a certain type of book. Well, why don't you try another type of book? Or again, picking a book that's educational. Again, just something that's challenging for it. Doing puzzles. It can be literally simple, but doing something that is an exercise for your brain, whether you want it to be fun or you want it to be educational, like in reading your audiobook form, whatever it is, like pick something that will challenge your brain, teach it something, make it have to work a little bit. So again, just thinking of it as a workout kind of helps because sometimes we get a little lost, like, whoa, what do I do for my mindset health? There's like all these options. Literally think of it as like, what would be considered food for my brain? Things I'm listening to, watching, or reading. And how can I give my brain a workout today? Maybe I'll do a puzzle. Maybe I'll go somewhere new and try something different. Maybe I'll try to learn a new skill set. Maybe maybe I used to play an instrument and I stopped practicing. I'm gonna start practicing that instrument again because that's working your brain and kind of practicing that skill set again. So those are just some ideas for how to continue to engage your mindset health each week. So body is a lot more straightforward. This is obviously one we're all super familiar with, of course. So nutrition, what are you eating? What are you taking into your body? Are you exercising, even if it's the world recommended average base, which is like 3 days a week for like 20 or 30 minutes? Are you moving your body? So just trying to take into account each week, what am I doing for my body? Putting into it as fuel, as energy, And what am I doing with it? How am I moving, or am I not? And then rest. Don't forget rest. It's so easy to forget rest. And trust me, as a parent, I get it. Like, I feel like I'm not getting a lot of rest over here, but it is something I'm intentional about, even if it can't be perfect sleep. Taking a break here and there. Maybe instead of constantly cycling laundry, I'm going to just like sit for a little bit. That's okay. Not beating yourself up for not feeling like you have to have the house all put together because you've been a little run down lately and you need to just rest for a minute. Or asking that family friend to help with your kids so you can take a nap, or your spouse or your partner, whoever, taking into account your needs. So if you're doing well on the nutrition and you're doing well on moving your body and exercising, but you're not resting, find a way that you can maybe get a little bit somewhere in the week to catch up or to regroup a little bit. So again, it just helps you as a framework to just be thinking about these things. But as far as body, physical health, we're all pretty aware of what tends to go into that. But don't forget rest. Everybody kind of forgets about rest. And then the other thing I do want to say about body is because it really does change how you address the health of your body through what season you're in life. And I know I've talked about this on past episodes before, but even always being somebody very interested in health and fitness, my fitness journey and how I've achieved health and fitness has been very different depending on the phase of life I was. And if I kept trying to fit my old strategies into the new season, it would not have worked. And it would have been very frustrating. Now, there is a transition period. As you enter a new season, you'll know when you're in a transition. You're like, okay, I'm trying the old things, the old ways, and it's not working. So you have to rework the system. And so you have to start trying things, playing with things, and figure out a new way. But just I want to encourage you to know that there is a new way, and it's necessary for you to find a new way if you realize the old things aren't working. And it's probably because you're in a new season. So if you're like, man, I'm trying all the things and none of them are working and you can't figure it out, I guarantee it's because you're in a new season and you're trying to fit old strategies into this new box and it's not going to work. So go ahead and embrace the change, embrace the transition. Look at the season instead of looking at the details of the nutrition, the exercise, all that. Look at your season first. What kind of season are you in? I'm in mom season right now with little bitty kids. So there's a lot of pivoting involved with that. There's a lot of you can't just know exactly what's going to happen. And so there's different strategies in order for me to get done what I want to get done. There's different asks that I need from other people that I might utilize for help. And some days I may not get that help. So there's ways I've had to see in this season how I'm going to do it. The workouts are not an hour long. I would love that. I enjoy working out for an hour. It's therapy to me, but it's not going to be an hour. So it needs to be more like 30 minutes. So I've had to rework. I can't just make a workout in my head that's going to take an hour. It needs to take 30 minutes, and there's going to be shorter rest breaks. And you know what I'm saying? So, we've got past episodes on some of those things, how I do certain things like that. But for your body, though, if you've been frustrated and feel stuck in this part, check on the season you're in, because it's very likely you're not moving forward because you're just trying to do things the way you've done them before. And you're in a different season where those just don't match up. I promise there's a solution. There is a strategy. There is a way, but you'll only find it if you look at it differently. And you really start with looking at the season, looking at what tends to be the stumbling blocks for you, and then seeing how you can overcome those and approach. It will be an approach of a different way. So a different time of day of working out, different way of how you prep your food. You may not be able to do it all one day. It may have to be, XYZ time. You may have to, it can't maybe always be cooked. You might have to do some frozen options, but there are healthy frozen options. So maybe instead of just totally cooking everything organically, you might have to have some good, healthy frozen options. It just may be the season you're in right now. It's the season I'm in right now. You may have to have some healthy microwave options and not be able to steam your rice every time, right? So again, just some examples of just getting your mind working as far as body health goes. So mind health, body health. Next is spirit health. And this is one I think we all forget about a lot. And especially those of you who are like, well, I'm not a spiritual person, thinking of it as maybe a religious thing. It isn't that. That's not what I'm talking about here. Now, there are practices to nourishing the health of your spirit. I'm talking about the health of your spirit, which, yes, some of the nourishment, some of the food quote options to nourish your spirit can be things like your prayer life. It can be things like reading in scripture. That can be food for some people for their mind, body, and soul, and most important, their spirit. What you listen to. If people are listening to sermons that are teaching them things, or listening to not even sermons, but just things like that they're struggling with, that like personal development type podcasts like this, things that nourish their spirit, like overcoming self-doubt, finding self-confidence, reworking and figuring out your identity. Who are you? Recovering from trauma, right? So even content like that you're ingesting or that you're reading or that you're listening to, those are all things that nourish your spirit. So again, I'm not talking just about having a religious point of view and that and nourishing that spirit. Your spirit in you has needs and it needs to be healthy. And so some of the practices, some of the food sources for that, yes, can be going to church and some of those options, but it can also be things like, again, like I said, what you listen to, but it can also be nature. Getting out in nature for me personally really nourishes my spirit. So a lot of times, say even to do body health and spirit health at the same time, if it's a nice day, I really try to make my cardio, my movement session outside and take a walk in the neighborhood with the girls, because if I'm really stressed, even if it's a hot day, I feel like me sweating is me sweating out that stress, sweating out the things that I don't need, all the toxicity feelings inside me. I'm sweating those out my pores, and that feels literally rejuvenating to me. Or if it's not a hot day and it's just a nice day, smelling the fresh air. To me, one of my favorite smells is freshly cut grass or like the dew on the ground, like, and taking those in as I'm on a walk or just sitting on the front porch for a moment and breathing that in is nourishment to my spirit, which is really huge. I'm going to talk about this after I go through all four, about why I feel like spirit health is actually the most important. And it's the one that we often skip the most because, again, I think that we think of it as having to be a religious thing, but your spirit is your spirit. And I'm going to get into that. It's the deepest layer of you. And it's the one that overcomes all things. So nourishing your spirit is huge. So again, that can be through nature, that can be through practices like meditation. And one of the things I was going to say, and even just stillness in general, it can be even nourishing your spirit, can be being around people that really also feed your spirit, nourish your spirit, aren't tearing you down, people that aren't toxic, people that are encouraging, empowering, people that challenge you. Those are food sources for your spirit. And the way you exercise your spirit is actually through the way you live life. So when your spirit's healthy, it's good to challenge yourself to take some of these faith leaps, start living for opportunity. Again, mindset shifts, as we talked about so much on this podcast, of you run into a challenge, and instead of seeing it as a stumbling block, you choose to see it as a stepping stone, and you're looking for the opportunity from it. You're looking for the blessing. You're seeing what piece you are to play in this overall puzzle that ultimately is all working together for the good somehow. And those are things that are workouts for your spirit, especially overcoming challenges, practicing resilience, practicing having the hard conversation, overcoming the stressful situation at work, not running away, but overcoming it, or the stressful situation at home, right? The kids are vomiting, you're juggling all, but you're doing it and you're just pushing through. And that is all spirit work. Those are the reps of those dumbbells for your spirit, and trying to do those in a way that you feel good about at the end of the day. That's like, okay, I did it. I didn't give up. Maybe it didn't have to be perfect. It was really messy, but man, I did it and I'm really proud of myself. That's all spirit work. The spiritual workouts for your spirit. Again, not religious, but spiritual work within your soul workouts. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So taking faith leaps, this is the exercising of your spirit health. So those all the different types of practices we talked about. This is now the spirit workout is the implementation of those. Like, those were all things nourishing you, but now the way you respond to life is often because of those practices or the quality of those practices. The nourishment you have, just like with your body, with food, the quality of the food is the quality of your performance, of your physical performance. That's just the way it is. So for your spirit, this is why it's so important. People don't think of it this way. What you're putting into your spirit as food will determine the quality of the performance of your spirit, the quality of how you show up in this life. And to me, that is huge. That's the most important of all things. So that's the quote workout side, the exercise portion of your spirit. And I hope that can reframe your mind around it and why it's so important. But I'm going to talk about again in a moment why I think your spirit is the most important thing to address. But the last thing is your purpose. So purpose being, this is what you view as your contribution to the world, the thing that ideally lights you up. So sometimes what lights us up and it does like overarchingly match is like, say, your career, but sometimes that's not necessarily the thing you feel like your big overarching real, feel purpose behind it, and that's okay. But then especially if the work you're doing as far as your career maybe doesn't make you feel really full of purpose and doesn't make you feel fulfilled, then it is really important to make sure that you find a side hustle then that you really align with, or a passion project, or just be volunteering, or finding some way to feel like you're putting work out into the world. This doesn't have to be monetized, but you're giving back to the world in a way that makes you feel fulfilled and that you're creating impact. Because as humans, all of us want to feel like we matter. We just do. I don't think there's a single human in the world that would say they don't care if they matter. We all want to matter, whether we want to matter to a few people or to one person or to tons of people. All of that is different as to how far we feel called to have our impact spread. But all of us want to matter. So it's important. If you're feeling stagnant in life, a lot of times it's because we aren't living with purpose. You'll always have multiple purposes. There's never just one, but it's important to be making sure that you have a purpose implementation happening each week, or you're not going to feel fulfilled. So having some purpose to what you're doing in your week is really important. What kind of impact did you make this week? If you didn't feel like you made any impact in any way, which would be really hard to do, to not make any kind of impact, even if you're being kind, that counts. But it's nourishment to our life as a whole to feed into our purpose. The kinds of what food would look like to that is, again, if it's your career, fantastic. Hone in your career to like know the purpose behind what you're doing and the why behind it and how you're making impact. That feeds your soul, that feeds your body, it feeds your mind, it feeds all the things and makes you feel fulfilled. And that in itself, that energy changes the world in itself. But your career and the passion projects, like I said, the difference you want to make in the world, to the collective whole, to the people closest to you, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? It's ever evolving, but thinking about those things and making sure you're living in a way each week that is moving you forward towards that legacy you're wanting to create and moving you forward in that difference you want to make is what brings fulfillment, which to me is one of the biggest definitions of abundant living, is feeling like we lived life well to the best of our ability, and that we're proud of it, and that we feel fulfilled by it, and that we mattered, and that we created value for someone out there. That makes us feel complete. So again, the different levels of that I would break down as to say what people define as success. But feeling like you're abundant in life is feeling settled and that you really showed up to your best of your ability and created something that mattered with who you chose to be each day. So I think that's why purpose is a key pillar, because as humans, we all want to matter. So doing things in your life that make you feel like you matter to the collective whole, or even to the few closest to you, to make you feel proud of yourself is really huge. And, living a life on purpose and for purpose is going to bring that truest fulfillment. And again, to me, is a really accurate description of what abundant living really is. But so to tie it on a bow, I really want to go back to this spirit health thing. So it's the most important to me to nourish, I believe, because here's the thing. When your body's weak, your mind can overcome. When your mind is weak, though, because your mind does govern your body, but your spirit governs your mind. So when your mind is weak, your spirit steps in, your spirit can overcome. And when your purpose is lacking, then your spirit is what helps you find that. So your spirit really is the one thing that when everything else is falling apart is going to keep you going. Your spirit is going to be the actual anchor point. And to me, it's no shock that the world is in such distress, because we focus on all those other things in their health quality. But we often skip spirit because, again, a lot of people just assume it's just a religious thing. But that's just the practice. That's just some of the food people have to nourish their spirit. But there's so many other things. But your spirit is that soul inside of you that is the thing that's going to move you on when nothing else will. So that's one of the things I just want to leave you with today is that of all the 4 pillars, I think that is the most important. And if you feel like you're falling short in multiple pillars, go back to the spirit and see where that one is. Because when you address that one, I promise all the other areas are going to up level along with it because it is that anchor point. It is the springboard. It's the thing that's going to get you through when nothing else will. And it's going to make you have the best quality of life. So I hope that this was maybe enlightening for you. Maybe it helps you to just simplify things a little bit, just thinking about, okay, there's 4 pillars to my life: mind, body, spirit, purpose. How am I doing each week and implementing into the health of each of these things, giving a little nourishment and a little exercise to each of these things to try to keep them all strong and moving the right direction. And just having awareness of the 4 can help you know if something doesn't feel like it's right or feels like it's waning. Well, which one is it? Or is it a couple? And then you can redirect a little extra focus to that area for a bit to help bring it up closer to the others. Again, nothing will be perfectly in balance, but the awareness around that there's a few, potentially, again, this is my opinion, but 4 pillars of life that can really, enhance the overall quality of your life. And then just kind of using that as um, a mark to come back to. I can't think of the word. Like I said, I'm tired. Um, thinking of it as your framework, just to come back to assess where you're at. And so hopefully that'll give you some guidance, help you make some positive changes, and, just help you be able to monitor where you are and what things maybe need a little extra help. And maybe some ideas. Maybe you got some ideas today of how you can do more for your health in any of those ways. Give you some ideas of how to make what food for your mind, what food for your body, what food for your spirit, and what food for your purpose, and those kind of things. So, anyways, hope it was helpful today. Thanks ahead of time for the prayers for us to make it through the rest of this week. And I hope all of you are doing well. And catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.